These are the notes on topographic maps. Topographic maps show changes in elevation of Earth's surface. Natural features like mountains, lakes, streams, man-made features like cities, roads. A lot of the times they'll have things like churches also. The different topo terms. Topo is just shortened word for topographic. Contour lines are lines on a map that connect points of equal elevation, or like height above sea level, which is the definition of elevation, the height above sea level. Contour intervals are the difference in elevation between two adjacent means side by side, contour lines. So you go back to your math terms. Difference means what? Difference means subtraction. So with contour intervals, what we're going to do when we actually start to work with these maps is we're going to have to subtract between the values of two lines to figure out what the interval or the amount between the two is. Index contours. Contour lines that are labeled to help you find the contour interval, or that difference between the two lines. So when we look on some of these maps, you'll see a bolded line and it'll have a number with it. And that's an index contour. It tells you what the value of the line is. And then here's a contour map. So all these lines on here, these are all contour lines. And then what would be the name of the bold line with the number with it? That would be one of the contour intervals. Oh, not a contour. Oh, I lied. Okay, I lied. All of these lines on here are contour lines. The difference between two of the lines, like we know this one is 3,600. If we figure out the difference between these two lines, that would be the contour interval. And then this bold line that says it is 3,600 is an index contour because it's telling us what it means. Index. Think about that in a book. More topo terms. A map scale compares distances on the map with distances on the Earth. So if you have a certain, maybe 1 centimeter on the map is equal to 1 kilometer in real life. That's a scale. The legend explains symbols used on the map. It's going to show you what a railroad looks like, shows you what a road looks like, shows you what a church looks like. Different symbols like that would be in the legend. And then a benchmark. This picture right here on the slide is a picture of a benchmark that the USGS, or the U.S. Geological Survey, has put on the side of a mountain somewhere that says that this point represents 1,172 feet above sea level. So it's a point of known elevation. If you're walking along, hiking one day, and you come across next to one of these benchmarks, it's going to tell you what the elevation at that height on the Earth is. Some rules to remember about contour lines and topo maps. Contour lines never touch or cross. Contour lines make closed circles around hills and depressions because it's showing you all the way around this one line is the same certain elevation. And then we'll see some examples. Seeing all these contour lines, they never touch, they never cross all the way around. And then right here it says Piney Mountain. Make a circle all the way around the mountain. And what this is actually showing out here is the lower elevation. The closer you get in towards the middle, the higher up the mountain goes. And then at the very top, tells you what the height of the mountain is, 1,503. And because there's no key on here, I don't know whether that's feet or meters or miles or whatever. We don't know what it is because there's no key. And then another one. Hasher lines are used to show depressions. The word is hasher, not hatcher. Hasher lines are used to show depressions. And that to me looks kind of like when I would draw it, an inside out sun. If we look on the map right around here, right above the word monument, around the 200 index contour, you can see these little tiny dash lines. Those are hasher lines, which says that right here is 200, whatever the value is. But then once you get inside, instead of going up higher, it's actually going to go down lower in the middle. Contour lines form V's that point to lower elevations when they cross a ridge. And contour lines form V's that point to higher elevations when they cross a stream. So for example, on this map, we've got, oh look, there's a closed depression. There's some hasher lines from the slide before. Here are contour lines, and they're pointed in a V shape. And here's a value 25, 30, 31. So these are pointing to a lower elevation, which means what? It means that that is a ridge, whereas with this contour line, it is pointing to, here's 5,200, and I don't see another reference point, but it's telling you right here, contours V upstream. So the way I like to think about it, actually here's another good example too. Here's 5,000, and then right there is actually a stream, because the other reference point, 5,200, 5,000 is here. These contour lines are pointing upstream. And think about the way water flows. Water has to flow from a higher elevation to a lower elevation. So the higher elevation is always going to be where the stream points to. Or the way I also like to think about it is that water cannot flow upstream. So in this V shape, water cannot go up into the V. It has to come down out of the V. And then when we get back to class, I'll show you a couple of other ways to help you remember this. Reading a topo map, you must determine the contour interval, so you know the value of each line when you're trying to count up to a certain elevation. Determine the map scale if you're trying to find distance. Identify any hills or depressions. And then use the legend to identify man-made features if you're looking for something specific. Topo profiles are a cross-sectional picture of the land surface. So instead of looking down on the world like you're doing on topo maps, a topo profile basically cuts the earth in half so that you're kind of looking at it at eye level. And it's determined by graphing contour lines. We'll actually do this in a few days. And shows changes in elevation across a certain portion of the map. And then for the try one, grab your set of notes if you don't already have them, and look at the bottom of the notes. On the topo map on the furthest to the left, it says contour, interval, ridge, steep slope, and gentle slope. Which letter represents the gentle sloping area? I would say you should pick letter B, because those are far apart. Which letter on the map represents a steeply sloping area where the lines are close together? I would say that would be letter C. The interval, you've got a line that says 50, 100, 150, and 200. So the difference between any two of those lines next to each other should be 50 meters. So that would be your interval. And then it's also saying that there's a ridge there, because if you look at the 200 line, it's pointing down to the 150 line, which also points towards the letter B, which is still downhill. So that means that is a ridge. If we look at the middle picture, it says it's got hasher lines, an index, and then closed circles, which represent a hill. The circles that are close together at the bottom show you a hill, whereas the hasher lines above it show you a depression. And then there's the index contour, which says 100 all the way around it. And then the picture on the right side shows you a stream with that V shape in the contour lines, a steep slope, a gentle slope, and then none of the lines ever touch or cross. So the stream is coming from the middle, where the letter A is, over to the left towards where it says west, because the stream has to flow downhill. So that's another example of the V. Water cannot flow up into the V, and it has to flow down out of the open V. The steep slope would be below the letter A towards the south, because the lines are really close together. The gentle slope would be probably to the southwest, as those lines are far apart. And then again, none of the lines ever touch or cross. So make sure you go back, come up with some questions. This can be very confusing. So come up with some good questions that we can talk about in class when we get back.